Hey there, and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, episode 37. As the year comes to a close, so do we as we approach the sunset of our journey across the Sea of Stars. There aren't many episodes left in the legendary 1988 science fiction OVA, but we're not quite done yet. Joining me in our final stretch, as always, is my co-host, Iro.
I'm still here, just as we have taken the 10,000 light year journey. I guess it's more of a 110 episode journey.
Yes,
but we are nearing the end. Soon we will find our own Planet Heinesen.
Yes, it feels about as long anyway. So, but yeah, we are here to talk about another interesting trio of episodes of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
It's going to be the penultimate episode recap.
Yeah, this is the penultimate episode, folks. To everyone listening, as always, thank you for sticking with us this long. But yeah, it's coming to a close. It's a bittersweet occurrence. Bittersweet in a variety of ways. We'll get into it in this podcast, but I have feelings about the direction this show's going and where it may eventually end up. And perhaps this podcast will be an interesting time capsule. I think this podcast will be an interesting one to return to, even for us.
Yes, I think we've created multiple interesting time capsules
for us to return to once we're done with the series. I think this one especially, though, will be interesting to look at because this will be the last podcast you will ever listen to where
we don't know what happens next.
Right, where we don't know everything there is about the original OVA. This is the last time Iro and I will ever be in the dark about this series. And
oh boy.
That's it's bittersweet in its own way. I will miss the days of us.
The days of where does this show go in 80 episodes?
Right. I sometimes think about going back and listening to some of the season 1 podcasts where we talk about us not even being able to comprehend what this show would look like 80 episodes later. And now 80 episodes later, here we are. And
here we are at episodes 105, A Planet in Confusion. Episode 106, Holly House Burns, and episode 107, Crimson Star Road.
Yes. So we open up with episode 105. We finally pick up from last week's cliffhanger.
The Rugpool Incident.
Yes,
the Rugpool Incident.
Yes, and we find out that the Rugpool Incident was a prison riot.
Yes, I feel like one of us said that.
Yes, I think one of us, if we did not say prison riot, I think we said something along the lines of people will try to break out of jail or something. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't quite go that way, but I think it is interesting where things go. So yes, before the riot even starts, the narrator says, Reinhard specifically commanded Oberstein not to abuse the prisoners anymore. But before that order...
but putting them down in a riot is A-okay.
Yes. Anyways, yes. So the riot breaks out. We find out that 5,000 political offenders were detained here when the riot breaks out. And as if to add oil to the fire, the Black Lancers, on their own, without Binfield, decide to take their own initiative...
They're like, oh man, we need to help with this terrible situation.
Right, to help put down the riot.
We will also help.
Yes, which of course overlaps with the jurisdiction of the military police.
Right,
who,
they assume, they are like, oh, those Black Lancers are here to bust out Winfield.
Yes, which is a pretty funny conclusion to arrive at. But yeah, so it essentially leads to a confrontation between the military police and the Black Lancers. Black Lancers immediately start talking shit about the military police. Things are about to pop off, but once again, someone swoops in at the last minute to defuse the situation. It's Ferner.
Yep. Not Valen this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Ferner coordinates the Black Lancers and the MPs, to work together to deal with the riot. And by dealing with the riot, I mean by immediately opening fire on the prisoners. just straight up shooting them left and
Right.
right. Uh,
It devolves into chaos, basically.
yeah, it goes real bad. As if to make things worse, Ferner gets shot by like one of his own like prison guards or
By
something
accident, yeah.
by accident, like because Ferner gets taken out of the fray, like
Nobody's
communications
in
break
chain of
down. No,
command, yeah.
right? There's no chain of command. The narrator specifically points out that as a result, the various factions at play began to crack down on the prisoners harder and harder, as if to like compensate for themselves or something.
Right.
It's to prove their
And
loyalty, I guess. But
like, even though Ferner had like substantial medical services on standby, like because he got shot, they didn't get any orders, so they were just hanging out for like a
it's
few hours and could have saved several hundred people who did not get saved.
yeah, it's almost as if like these structures of authority that depend on singular individuals are uniquely flawed in this very specific way. But yes, we find out that over 1,000 of the prisoners are killed. A couple hundred of the prison guards are killed as well. Similarly, elsewhere, we find out that terrorist attacks start happening all over Heinessen at the same time.
Yes.
Valen nearly gets shot again. Dude keeps dodging bullets like a motherfucker.
Bueller goes to see Oberstein. Oberstein not taking any visitors right now.
Oberstein not taking any calls. In fact, the party line is that Ferner still has things under control, when that is very much not true.
Even though he's in a hospital.
Yes. We find out that Paeta and Oliveira finally get theirs. And in what has to be one of the only cases in the entire history of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, something bad happens to the bad people, and the good people sort of get away. Siddeley survives the riot. Mirai, however, gets critically injured and falls into a coma. So, not exactly sunshine and roses here, but hey, at least Oliveira finally got that piece of shit.
They kind of, the narrator talks a bit about how because of the types of people who are detained, because they're all like old political leaders and stuff, that they assumed there would be no chance for like a low chance of a riot, because these are all like middle-aged folks.
Yeah, they do point out that like this riot does not seem to fit the demographic of, the people who are being imprisoned, and suspects that someone must have been behind it. Naturally, who's
behind everything in the galaxy these days?
It is the Earth cult. So, but before they can deal with that, they have to deal with the fact that this news is getting out there, and they are going to need to massage it as best as they can before it reaches Iserlohn.
Right, because if word reaches Iserlohn that they shot up all of their detainees, it would destroy all hope of communication.
Yes, it's not a good look. And Mueller continues to be like maybe like a Mittermeier tier most reasonable human being in the room, who in many ways I almost feel like Mueller himself, like it's a different power structure in the Empire, but I'm beginning to get the vibe that Mueller is the man with the clipboard in the Empire.
Yeah, like, a bit.
Mueller is the one who constantly notices all of these problems, but does not have enough clout to like fix them on his own.
Guys, we need to
stop. Mueller
let me talk to Oberstein, please.
Right. Like Mueller advocates that they should have somebody who is like connected to Iserlohn, have them tell Iserlohn about the news and assure them things are fine. Unfortunately, the only person with a connection to Iserlohn that they have on hand is Mirai, who is currently in a coma. So, things are not working out so well there. So, Iserlohn, we return to the Iserlohn fleet,
right? Because they've left the corridor to go to Heinessen they want to meet with Mueller and be escorted there.
They find that nobody is there to receive them, and then they get news of the incident at Rugpool.
Yep, Julian basically says, let's turn around because we
Yes,
can't
yes.
deal with this right now.
Right. I, I am really coming to appreciate Julian as a leader of the Iserlohn Republic. I feel like on one hand, he does have a lot of like Yang's, he is as thoughtful and introspective as Yang, and he does worry as much about setting precedents, and he is he is very much Yang's protege, but also like I like that there are times when he's just like, I don't have enough information to work with here. We should go back.
Just not.
Yeah, like I am not going to jump to conclusions. Let's just, it is like it's like you're about to go out for groceries, and like I don't know, you hear that like I don't know, you just I don't know, you just see like a fire like about a mile away, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm going back.
Just turn this ship around.
Yeah. They
However,
just literally do a U-turn.
We are informed by the narrator that they were gonna turn around immediately, but one of the destroyers had engine trouble.
Yes,
and its repairs took time until the next day.
And because that delayed the whole fleet, it actually gave time for like a small Imperial Patrol fleet to show up, who of course immediately demand that I don't know, they stop and submit to the authority of the Empire or something. I'm going to be honest, I don't quite understand what was happening with both this and like the small fleet we see next week that are just like,
that might be the same one.
What is it with this like small Empire fleet that is just here at the exit of the Iserlohn corridor that for some reason
standard patrol,
right? But also like it's for whose first instinct is to immediately start fighting the Iserlohn fleet.
Man, like that's the Empire for you, right?
Right, but it's like you think that like it's like, it's like the whole thing of like them specifically asking for Mueller to receive them because I guess Mueller is like a more rational guy. You'd think that like literally any of like Reinhardt's top men other than Bittenfield, were they in the same position, they would not just start by opening fire on the Iserlohn Republic. Like they'd at least first hail them and be like, hey, what are you doing? But I don't know, just gives me more of those vibes. Oh, just like sure, Reinhardt is trying to reform the Imperial military, but you still got a lot of those like hot-blooded young guns lower down the ranks who like just itching for some action and glory. But
narrator takes this chance to talk about Dusty Attenborough.
Yeah, I actually liked this. At first I thought, oh no, like
let's set up Dusty to instantly get killed next week.
Let's set up some death flags for Dusty. But I mean, hey, we still have 3 episodes we haven't watched yet, so who could say? But for now, I kind of like this bit with the narrator that kind of like mentions, I think, an entirely like valid point that like actually like Dusty is actually a pretty good admiral.
Yes.
Like he's not Yang tier, but like dude did reach admiral rank around the same age as Yang Wenli. Like that is impressive regardless, and like there is definitely that vibe of like when they talk about, back when they talk about like how if it weren't for Reinhardt, Reuenthal would have been like a legendary admiral who, could have created his own dynasty. There is kind of a vibe with the narrator here that if it weren't, if it weren't for Yang Wenli hogging all the spotlight, Dusty Attenborough could have gone down in history as, the premier FPA admiral of his time.
I specifically note that he has a good sense of balance between hard and soft tactics.
Yes, that like Dusty has like Yang's like, higher minded tactics, but he's a lot more practical about it, Basically calling back to a tangent we had like dozens of episodes ago. Turns out actually Dusty Attenborough is the Ryu of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Perfectly balanced.
Sure.
And to go with it, we get another fuzzy Vaseline flashback.
Yes,
I guess
little young Julian.
Yes, and the time Dusty met him, I guess. Just like
we're meeting the Young family for a picnic under this tree.
Right.
I guess in the lovely field from the second ED or whatever.
Yes, but like this is like before even Frederica, I guess, right? Like it's just
yeah.
It's just Young and Julian hanging
It's
out under a tree.
like season 1, Julian.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Prompting him to think, I don't want to reminisce about these people. I want to reminisce with these people.
It's a very good line from Julian. Like, and as a result, they decide, yeah, we're just gonna bail out of here, however, before
cruiser fleet, yeah.
Yes. However, before we get to that, we get another interlude here. We find out that Mittermeier, Eisenach, Mecklinger, and Reinhard are about to arrive at Heidessen. Reinhard, understandably, pretty angry about the news of the riot.
Yes.
Pretty fucking mad at Oberstein about this.
Right.
Oberstein, Oberstein not flapped, but you could tell that even, Oberstein is a little cowed here because he doesn't even try to slip in one of his usual dour one-liners. He's just like, okay, boss, and signs off.
He would. They
Meanwhile,
note that they brought 6 doctors along on the Brunhild.
Yes, because Mecklinger still thinking about the Kaiser's health, and they point out that normally Reinhard would not have allowed this, but when he found out that it was the Kaiserin who insisted on the 6 doctors coming along, he had to acquiesce.
Right, and they note that Mecklinger would write in his later days. Yes, and he was unaware of the gravity of the situation. And I think we'll come back to this next episode.
Oh, we'll get back to this. I think more like 107, I think.
Well, specifically the narrator saying, and in the later days, he wrote about this.
Yes, you're right. I'm glad you are right. Anyways, with that taken care of, we return back to the Iserlohn fleet. We find out that it is 100 versus 12.
Right, because they're the 12 because they just thought they'd get a nice escort.
They were on a diplomatic mission, right. like not here for a fight. So Dusty continues to do the thing he's very good at, which is retreat. Which
he's good at he's good at retreating and making it seem like they barely got away.
Yes. That's a little unfair to Dusty. I'd say actually it's a very real. Being good at retreating is in fact a very good skill for an admiral. So, but yes, Dusty retreats back to the corridor.
He's got that A rank disengage skill.
Yes, exactly. Patrol fleet backs off, and we find out that the entire Iserlohn fleet is basically waiting at the corridor,
right, on standby.
Yes, because we're not stupid. We know how Yang Wen-li died. We're not letting this shit happen ever again. So,
and they basically say, well, let's send Frederica back to Iserlohn, and the boys will stay out here on combat alert.
I mean, look, by the events of episode 107, it turns out this was a prudent choice.
Yeah.
But yes, we return back to Heinessen, where Oberstein enacts a plan to in his quotes, in his phrasing, to dust off Heinessen before Reinhard arrives.
Kaiser's still not here. Time to still do more purges while I'm still allowed to.
Yes, and the most interesting purge of all is that Oberstein announces that they have captured Rubinsky.
Yes.
Yeah.
They got him at some hideout.
They got him. Yeah, apparently. Apparently his hideout was on Heinessen.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense.
Yes.
Also, Ferner goes into this explanation of how they basically sifted through every fake patient at every hospital, everywhere, one by one, until they found him, and that Rubinsky is suffering from a malignant brain tumor, and he'll last maybe 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into this right now because but maybe we should. This is the first of a series of plot points with this trio of episodes where I begin to, if I'm being entirely honest, I begin to get anxious about Legend of the Galactic Heroes' ability to gracefully cap off every plot line. Because
when you have so many,
here's the thing we always loved about Legend of the Galactic Heroes is that almost every plot line that this show ever posited, it found a way to conclude them in a narratively satisfying manner.
Sure.
Now,
but as we get to the end,
it begins to feel like they are starting to just kind of rush through things.
I mean, kind of like with Erwin Joseph.
Right. I think this began with the Erwin Joseph plot. Well, the Erwin Joseph plotline I could write off a little bit more because it's not like they were like prominent in the plot. Whereas
Right.
Rubinsky was prominent in the plot. He was a recurring character, and there was an entire theming around like this idea of he was in many ways fighting this shadow war against Reinhard. And so for Ferner to explain that actually they were investigating him this whole time off screen,
And also,
like,
we got him.
and we
That's
got
over
him.
with.
And we're not going to even show us apprehending him. We just got him.
Dominique St. Pierre up to?
Right, just all of us taken care of off screen.
She just fuck off.
Right.
She left with Schumacher. Let's show that.
I mean, we can only hope. Like, maybe she settled down and finally found the right man. But it's just like it. I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. Like this is like some like. I've had this on the brain lately, but this is this is like when in Metal Gear Solid 4 they reveal to you that the Patriots were all actually members of Major Zero's team from Metal Gear Solid 3. And in fact, it was Paramedic herself that was like the head doctor of the like Leon Fonterib plan.
Did all this
that created solid and liquid and solid and that also, of course, Sigint would go on to become the arms tech president, and the Major Zero, the man who would go on a tangent about making a snake gun, would go on to become one of the greatest villains of the series, and this is all explained in the span of 20 minutes.
Right.
And this is kind of what it begins to feel like.
Just like, no, wait, hang on.
Like, wait a minute. Like,
tell me about that.
Right, like, wait a minute. Like, shouldn't the apprehending of Rubinsky be at least its own episode? Like, and I get that there's a theming. There's like in the same way that like Yang Wen Li died, right? There's something like, narratively appropriate about Rubinsky, kind of just going out with a whimper.
It's like kind of like we said like last episode, like he ran out of time in multiple ways.
Yeah, but I still feel like even with that caveat, the way it is concluded still feels a little too neat, a little too quick and clean for the way Legend of Galactic Heroes usually does things.
Still 3 episodes.
And I think that is, I mean, you're right. Yes, okay, fine. If Neo-Rubinsky in a cyborg body shows up in the last 3 episodes, then you're right. I'll be Crow here, but...
maybe I just want the show to make me Crow, like, over and over.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I would love if Neo-Rubinsky shows up at the end to lead his cyborg Earth cult army, but I just don't think that is going to happen.
Use hypnosis and brainwashing to implant his personality into De Villiers.
Of course. After De Villiers' arm was cut off during the attack at the Earth cult base on Earth, he grafted on Rubinsky's arm. So, anyway. Reinhard arrives at Heinessen. Oberstein and Binfield await Reinhard's judgment. We have a great bit here where Binfield apologizes to Reinhard for causing trouble, but does not apologize for criticizing Oberstein, saying that all the problems on Heinessen are still basically Oberstein's fault, and that he impugned their honor by saying that,
they all lost Yang Wen Li.
Yes, which we get a good bit from Reinhard saying, well, you know what? I also never won against Yang Wen Li.
Right.
So what do you have to feel bad about, Binfield? If I couldn't do it, there's no way you could. Basically.
Forrest Bittenfield's like, what a oddly measured response from the Kaiser.
Yes.
I expected to be scolded.
Yeah, and Binfield almost kind of... It's interesting. Binfield actually says he feels he's actually ambivalent about this. He feels like the man that he respected and followed to the ends of the earth would be the man who would scold him for fucking up, but...
Who would stop taking calls because he doesn't have a magic jar.
Yeah, exactly. But who knows? Maybe Reinhard is softening up in some ways for both better and worse.
Yeah, he basically tells Mueller to arrange meeting with the Iserlohn Republic and tells
Yes.
Oberstein to handle some poisonous insects, aka the
Right.
Earth Cult. One assumes.
Yes. And with that taken care of, Mueller ostensibly sets off for Iserlohn. The Rugpool prisoners are released, I guess, as a
Mhm.
make good from Reinhard. They
Yeah.
do kind of, again, they kind of point out, like, I feel like, again, sometimes I feel like Reinhard, like, again, I feel like it always happens with the Empire where things just clean up a little too nicely.
Right.
Because the narrator says, with the prisoners released, the Rugpool prisoners, their animosity for Oberstein changed into respect and adoration for Reinhard.
Right.
And it's like,
I still don't know how I feel about this characterization of Oberstein as the guy who does the bad things to make the real leader look good.
yeah, again, it always feels a little too convenient.
He's still doing the bad stuff.
Right, he's still doing bad things, right? And it's like if you agree with, I mean, I guess the only way I could see like Oberstein's position making sense is if you agree with Oberstein at face value that all the bad things that Oberstein is doing are necessary, somebody in his organization has to do them. Like, if you agree with his argument that either he or Reinhard or somebody had to do the things he does, that it might as well be him so Reinhard doesn't have to. I feel like that is the only way you can justify what Oberstein does, because
Right.
otherwise, if you don't accept that premise, then everything Oberstein does still feels like unnecessarily callous and cruel.
Yeah.
But anyways, as if the Rugpool incident was not enough, the narrator says that
Yeah.
narrator does it again where he's like, it almost appeared as if things were heading towards peace, but then the arson of
the arson of the Kaiser's home.
I can't even pronounce
the
it.
title I refuse to say because I know I won't
Yes.
do it right.
We will never get it
I'm gonna
right.
call Holly House.
Yes. Better that than its abbreviation of the arson of SS House, which has its own bad associations.
All right, well, that leads into episode 106.
Yes.
Beginning with the arson.
Yes.
If I know it was a strangely sweltering day, as if to portend a cataclysm.
Yes. It's again narrator just on his shit this week.
But I do like the very legend of Galactic Heroes statement that like they say that nobody really thought about it that way at the time. They just thought it was a hot day. But later, people would say, it was a hot day, as if to portend some cataclysm.
Yes, very, very good understanding.
Like, yes, you're right. That's just how it always is.
Yes, very keen understanding of human nature.
Well, when it gets too hot, the molasses tanks in Boston explode, and the waves come.
Yes. But yeah, so we are told that Anna Rose and Hilda are just hanging out at Reinhardt's house because Hilda is pretty pregnant at this point.
Frankly, I'm still surprised Anna Rose is here.
Yes, I kind of figured Anna Rose would have fucked off by now, considering I guess Reinhardt's not here. She doesn't mind hanging out with Hilda.
That's true.
I feel like it's mainly just Reinhard. Anna Rose wants nothing to do with anymore at this point.
She's basically here giving Hilda advice on how to handle Reinhard.
Yes. We find out that Kesler is out of town, basically dealing with schemes. The police receive an anonymous tip that the Earth Cult has regained their power since the
Kuhnmill incident.
Yes, and that they plan to attack Fazan. And turns out that is exactly what happens. We find out that multiple terrorist attacks basically occur all around Fazan.
Yes.
They take out the comms, meaning that they can't contact Kesler. We get a bit of here about how like Kesler in the last few years did a great job of like revamping the police force, which used to be like one of the most corrupt institutions in the Empire, into like an efficient and fair organization, but that they were too dependent on Kesler, and that without him, that they're kind of like getting overwhelmed by the attacks.
Yeah.
And as a result,
There's no guards at the Kaiser's home.
Yes, we find out that the Earth Cult managed to infiltrate the extremely poorly guarded house where Anna Rose and Hilda reside at. You'd think
and like number
this
2
place...
and number 3 and number 4 are most important people.
Yes, like you think this place, like they show 2 of the like plainclothes guards at the front gate, but you'd think like a place like this, like the Kaiser's residence, if there was any place in which you would station like
the Panzer Grenadiers.
Yeah, the Panzer Grenadiers, the dudes with the axes and the power armor. You know, the dudes who can shrug off laser fire like it's fucking nothing.
These dudes, yeah, you see a power armor man standing at the front gate, you don't fuck with that.
You'd be like, no, dude.
You can't just CQC one of those guys.
Right, like, I almost feel like, considering how, like, you know, again, because this is an autocracy, especially one that is explicitly based off of, like, bloodline lineage, that at some point, you would almost just, like, insist that, like, you keep a Panzer Grenadier hidden in, like, Hilda's closet at all times, you know? Because I feel like that is the level of...
pretending to be pregnant this whole time, there's actually a Panzer Grenadier under my skirt.
Right, like, you think that, like, this is how important these people are, like, you think they would have learned a lesson from Yang Wen-li, right? Like, not just the Iserlohn Republic, but even the Empire of, like, oh, the Earth Cult are fucking crazy, and, like, they'll kill whoever they can get their hands on, like, you know, shit, man. Forget the mansion. I would have kept Anna Rose and Hilda in a fucking underground bunker.
Right, but, just get one of Rubinsky's old hideouts.
Yeah, I know. He's got like a dozen.
They can just hang out in the hollow room.
Yes.
Anyway,
but yeah, so Kesler finally gets to the situation.
There's a fire. Fire started. The cops
start rushing
fire.
the house.
Yes.
Of course, Hilda like goes into labor right in the middle of the attack.
I mean, if you're being shot at.
Yeah. It's again. It continues to get into the whole final half of this episode gets back into like my constant quibble with the narrative causality of the Empire and how they get to operate on a completely different set of rules than the FPA ever did, because the first assassin who approaches Anna Rose and Hilda, you know, this real fucking like
crazy
anime
looking
creep, like walks in there and like doesn't immediately start shooting at them. He just starts breathing heavily and slowly taking steps towards them. And of course he gets shot by like some like random cop there, you know, saving their life. And like, you know, when Yang Wen-li died, that Earth Cult dude rounded the corner, took a shot, and ran away. Just like that. There was no pretense, no pause. Yang Wen-li died alone in that hallway, just like that. But no, when the Empire is in trouble, it's got to be real climactic. It's got to be real theatric. The guy can't just take the shot. He has to slowly stalk towards them one step at a time. And it's like, you know, I get it. It's for dramatic purposes, but it's like...
It's just like, come on, guys.
Come on, guys. But yes, Kesler makes it to the scene. He is strangely nonplussed about this new maid character that gets introduced, who has a box of ice cream on her.
Right, she went out to get chocolate ice cream for the Kaiserin, I guess.
And tells Kesler that Hilda and Anna Rose are in that burning building, which... Again, Kesler seems strangely pretty chill about that.
Kesler's professional.
He is cool under pressure.
Yes, and literally, so cool under pressure he could put a ladder up to the window, climb to the window, then shoot like 5 dudes.
Right, fucking turns into a goddamn Max Payne shootout here. Fucking Kesler just shooting dudes through the window, like crashes through it, taking shots, like. Manages to basically, long story short, he manages to save Hilda and Anna Rose. They manage to arrest
Anna Rose picks up a trophy and hurls it at some assailant.
Yes, that is true. Does manage to save Kesler by hurling a trophy at the last assassin.
The maid shows up. They bring a stretcher for Hilda.
Yes,
to get her out of there. Apparently, this fire was like not so dangerous. They could not just bring in people's stretchers to pull her out of the second floor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, from the outside, this building looked like it was burning bad, but apparently...
And I mean, the building burns down.
Right. It does burn down eventually, but apparently it was not... they were not in a huge rush to get out of there. So, but yes. Then we switch to the hospital where Hilda's in the middle of giving birth. We get all
Mm-hmm.
these noblemen just like because we don't have Reinhard here to be the anxious pacing father. We have the elder Mariendorf to do that
Hey, he
instead.
deserves it.
He does. We have this meet cute with Kesler and the newly
Nice.
introduced Marika von Feuerbach, the maid
Yes.
who had the ice cream
She's so embarrassed because she thought Kesler was just some police captain and not High Admiral.
and superintendent of the police.
Yeah.
Yes, and they have their little meet cute, and then the doctor comes out and he says, "Good news! The prince is born, and the first priority is that he has no congenital defects."
Hooray! That's so fun. That's really
It's so
funny to
good.
me.
It's
That's
really funny. Like, I mean, here's the thing,
like,
right?
given the Empire's history, given the history of Rudolf von Goldenbaum, of course they'd say that.
Right, of course, that is their first priority. Like, the first priority is like in order of priorities is the kid is born, it's a boy, no congenital defects. Like it's
Right, because I mean, Rudolf von Goldenbaum only had daughters, except for the one boy who had a congenital defect.
right. Yes, it's very. I mean, it's a neat. I don't know if it's intended or not, but I do like it as a small detail of like all of the people in that room are like older men. The doctor is an older man. Like these are all people.
There's a few like young girls.
Right, but like my point is that the people who are there are people who lived through the Golden Bomb dynasty.
Oh yeah.
Like they are people who like for them like the majority of their life has been lived under the Golden Bomb dynasty. And so it kind of makes sense culturally that like that is still like a thing that they are deeply concerned about.
Right.
Like even if like that law has technically been repealed, in the last few years, to allow people like Oberstein to exist, like there's still that vibe of like, oh, old habits die hard, especially cultural ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the new prince is born.
Mm-hmm. Narrator's like, nobody knew if this child was fortunate or unfortunate to be the child of Reinhard von Lohengramm.
Yes, which, as always, narrator just being a little, being a little foreboding, but at the same time, I kind of doubt we were gonna see this baby grow up. So.
Yeah, Kesler dances with the Marika a little bit. Yes. Everyone opens champagne that they had in this hospital.
Apparently so.
And then, Kesler goes back to work.
Yes. After hugging this cute girl, we are reminded that Kesler does not advocate for the rights of criminals and is in fact fine with torture when necessary.
Which, what a thing to just drop on us. What a thing to throw out there.
Yes. I mean, they couch it in the context that this is the Earth cult they are dealing with.
Right.
And that like Kesler does not have time to care about human rights.
Because these people are crazy fanatics.
Yes, and that he's fine with administering the apparently highly lethal truth serum to the prisoners that kills most of them.
I don't know if actual, like, straitjackets have these zippers to shoot people stuff up with, but I don't know. It's just goofy detail to it. I was like,
yes,
hang on. We put the zipper in the upper arm so we can inject
specifically
people?
For injections. I mean, I could almost see that sort of making sense.
Sure.
In the sense of like, oh, maybe you need to sedate them or something.
I guess.
Yes, I mean, honestly, I don't even know if straitjackets are widely used in psychiatric like stuff anymore. I feel like that is one of those things that we have now consider inhumane. So,
well, Kesler doesn't care.
But Kesler doesn't care. Also, considering the Earth cult and the Earth cultists we've met in the past, I would not approach an Earth cult member unless they were bound and gagged in some way. So,
and the narrator notes that the relentlessness of the military police would often be recounted in later days.
Yes, basically, Kesler set some bad historical precedents, but he doesn't care. Yep. But because they managed to find the Earth cult base
on Fazan,
yes, they storm the base, and as the narrator says, they basically kill the entirety of the Fazan Earth cult. So
other than those who poison themselves,
right.
We get this really not fun shot of people with vials of poison, including children.
Yeah, they keep doing that every time they bring up the Earth cult. But
Yeah. And
yeah.
Lang also executed.
Yeah, speaking of like tying up loose ends, Lang's finally executed. Um
They say
they talk
he
about how Lang,
did not cry nor beg for his life.
because he lost consciousness out of fear when he saw them coming for him and did not wake up until right before his execution, which is a very Legend of Galactic Heroes esque detail. There's a
Nah.
there's a small bit about like Kesler like looking at like the widow of like Lang and thinking, you know, something something.
Sucks for the families of criminals.
Yes, and I'm just here being like, man, fuck Lang, that piece of shit. Like, motherfucker got everything he deserved. So,
Yes.
No,
And
no,
yeah.
no sympathy for
And
him.
then Kesler, who had not slept for 4 days, was gonna go to sleep and then has to go meet Hilda.
And it's just like, you think Hilda would be like, I can, especially because also what Hilda summons Kesler for isn't even that
Just to hook him up with Marika.
right. So she meets with Kesler, basically says, thank you for saving me and the child. Kessler's like, oh no, blah blah. Kesler being his usual overly honorable self.
Nah.
And then is like, well, since I'm the Kaiserin, you should date my maid. And Kessler's just like, okay.
Okay. Narrator notes, yeah. 2 years later, Marika became Mrs. Fleet Admiral Kesler, which says that Kessler's going to be promoted to Fleet Admiral. Also, Kesler will be alive in 2 years.
Yeah, there's an interesting type of language that begins to get used here in this like chapter of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
We'll get to that in just a couple minutes here.
Yes.
Because cut to Reinhard on Heinessen trying to come up with a name for his child.
Yes. Despite the fact that everybody in the room kind of already knows what would be the most obvious name for Reinhard's firstborn son, but Reinhard still struggles for it over for a while until he has one of his like Kirky Eyes flashbacks.
What would Kirky Eyes do?
And it is a good kind of detail where once again Reinhard brings up once again that he just thinks Siegfried is such a plain name, and he can't even bring himself to name his sons, give his son's
Siegfried.
Name his son Siegfried as his first name. So he takes the easy way out and goes the middle name route, and we find out that we with the second emperor of the Lohengramm dynasty will be named Alexander Siegfried von Lohengramm.
Yes, and so like this is the thing that's been happening the past few episodes that's become really conspicuous, is that the narrator, the closest thing to Word of God we have in this show, is making it plain that the Empire, the Lohengramm dynasty, is going to be continuing for at least a few years.
Yes,
past where we are.
It will endure, and not only will it endure, that like the language in general between stuff like this and of course the Mecklinger like would say in his later days, and like even the stuff of like people would look back on this day and say, yes, the hot day, etc. Like the language of Legend of Galactic Heroes grows increasingly couched in retrospective. The idea that we are almost no longer viewing these events in current tense,
right?
But we are beginning to see them as flashback and foundation to a status quo that we, the viewer, will never see.
Right. I mean, everything has had like, and on this date this happened, or another page added to the history of the galaxy, but
and it's
not been more explicit.
Yeah. I mean, it's even stuff like minor stuff like some of them saying Kesler and Marika would get married. That feels like a thing that would have been shown on screen if this happened, say, season 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, with like Lutz's marriage, very short-lived marriage. These are the things we would have seen on screen, but instead they're now being framed in like they are going to happen, but you won't be around to see them. And
right.
And yes, especially with like this idea that there will be a second emperor of the Lohengramm dynasty. And here's the thing: I don't think either you or I actually had any delusion that the empire would actually collapse. Like,
right.
Like, no matter what the Earth Cult did, no matter how many, like, 1 in a million victories Julian manages to pull off, I don't think any of us actually suspected that, like, oh, the Empire is actually under any sort of existential threat. In
Right.
fact,
They won in season 3. Like, it happened.
yeah, they want, like, everything after that has been, the aftermath. Hell, Mittermeier or Mueller brings this very point up in the next episode. Like, there are no more existential threats to the Empire.
Yeah.
And not that we were expecting otherwise, but when they start using this language, it begins to make me wonder, what is the end game of Legend of the Galactic Heroes? What, like, if the Empire survives, if Reinhard quote-unquote wins the galaxy, what does that mean for the other players and characters in this setting? Most importantly, the Iserlohn Republic.
Yeah. It really brings up the question of, like, what happens to them, I guess.
And also, like, not even that, but can this series answer that question in a satisfying manner? Because, again, I don't mean to keep pointing at the Rubinsky thing, but, like, it does start to make you wonder, like, where and not even just, like, how. I mean, that's the thing. I guess not even where the show ends up, but how does it get there?
Yeah.
Like, what are the conclusions that this show arrives at?
What is going to be the underlying message of Galactic Heroes?
Like, what is going to be the main takeaway from this show based on how the ending is portrayed? Because I have a feeling that many of the things about the ending are already set in place as they are now. Like, I have a strong suspicion that the status quo is not going to change that much between now and episode 110. But how the narrate, or not just the narrate, how the show portrays those events can affect what our takeaway as the viewer is meant to be.
Yeah.
I try not to get into the politics of the fandom of Legend of the Galactic Heroes too much, but like, there is undoubtedly, like, a number of people who watch this show and come away with the conclusion that actually autocracy and enlightened dictatorships are good.
Look, they won. Obviously, right. They must be the victors.
Right, like, there are plenty of people, and again, I have my thought. I'm gonna be civil here, but I have my thoughts about people who would watch a show like this and come to that conclusion. But there are undoubtedly people who watch this show and their takeaway is, what we really need in our own world is just a Reinhard von Lohengramm. That's all we need. Just a impossibly talented 1 in a million, individual with the means to rise to the top.
We'll fix everything forever, and then nothing will ever change.
Right, and here's the thing. I'm sure people could walk away from that message because of things that were shown earlier in this show, but it almost makes me a little anxious about what is there something that the show does in its last few episodes that cements this belief in that segment of the fan base? And, I will admit, maybe I'm a little biased here, being born in the United States, I ostensibly want to believe in, the ideals of, if not a liberal democracy, then at least a Republican democracy. And so, to me, the idea of, like, wanting to venerate an autocracy is completely foreign to me. But is there something in this show's ending that perhaps makes people come away with that conclusion?
Right. I mean, I feel like up till now, it's been clear on the strengths and weaknesses of such.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the show's always been very good at being very even-handed in portraying. And hell, in episode 107, we will see one of the biggest weaknesses of an autocracy shoved right in our face.
You're right.
So, again, because of that even-handed nature, it does make me wonder, why and how are things being framed the way they are now, and what does that mean for the ending? And
yeah,
actually, I guess we can't speculate about this forever. So,
right. I do have a note here on my notes that says, maybe, like, this moment in second is the best time for Reinhard to keel over, because then there's an error. Hilda can take charge and make things not as warlike. The like, top brass still contains loyalty to the to the situation.
Yes.
Like, you have level-headed people like Mueller and Mittermeier and Kesler and Hilda, to make sure things don't go completely to hell.
Yes.
Like,
I mean,
public opinion is, still for all that, but Reinhard doesn't have a chance to go to war and fuck it all up.
Right, in many ways.
Also, as long as you get rid of Oberstein. You have to get rid of Oberstein
of course,
first. That's the asterisk.
Yes, you gotta write in your constitution, no more Obersteins. But, man, it's a shame you brought that up now, because I'm not ready for this yet. And because I explicitly want to save this
okay.
for our last podcast.
Very well.
I will hint at it. I'll hint at it for our listeners. I haven't brought up a historical tangent in a while, because I have one left in the chamber.
Yes. Okay. We have spoken
Historical
about
tangent
this.
to end all historical tangents.
Next time.
And I will say, it'll be next time. But I will just say, in many ways, what you just said, Iro, reminds me of the parallels between Reinhard, the warmonger, creating the great nation, and perhaps Reinhard's, there not being a need for a Reinhardt-esque ruler now that
things are relatively stable,
relatively peaceful. That, in fact, maybe a warmonger would be detrimental to the longevity of a nation, of an empire, and how it reminds me of the succession of the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan, and the trials and tribulations he went through, the own personal struggles he went through in deciding his next heir, and how, in many ways, Genghis Khan, arguably maybe one of the most all-rounder best emperors, rulers, warlords, however you want to call him, in human history, his final and greatest mistake was in how he decided his succession.
Well, we'll get to that one day soon.
Yes. You'll get to look forward to that next time.
Meanwhile, all the Admirals are hanging out, having a drink.
Yes.
Valen pokes some fun at Bittenfield, but he's like saying, hey, Oberstein caught Rubinsky. What do you think about that?
Yeah, very good.
Of course, Bittenfield just, I hope they both die.
Right. Specifically says, when a devil gets caught by a monster, as a human being, I can only hope both die, which...
yes.
For as much of a meathead as Bitfield is, dude constantly dropping some great bombs.
Yes, but they get the news that Iserlohn fleet is on the move, and which
mobilized
prompts Eisenach to speak. He says checkmate, because he's playing 3D chess during this.
Yes.
Prompting surprise from everyone.
Right, like if this anime were made in like the early 2000s, like this is the part where you'd have like the Bleach style, like hard cut like character's reaction to Eisenach speaking.
I think my favorite touch is the narrator coming in, just like with any other major historical event in this show. Narrator says, and on 1600, on May 18th of New Imperial Calendar 3, the other admirals heard Eisenach's voice for the first time.
Yes, it's very good. It's very good. Or even better, the detail is everyone other than Mittermeier.
Right, sure.
So implying Mittermeier has heard Eisenach speak before.
Sure.
And it just makes you want to know.
When? Why?
Why? Exactly. I want that episode. I want that flashback
I'm sure it's an episode of Gaiden.
Yes.
Just the Eisenach episode of Gaiden.
Eisenach episode of Gaiden. Of course, if you said you only have 25 episodes to do like prequel stuff for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, I would definitely say at least one of those episodes has to be devoted to Eisenach.
Patrushev and Murai putting down rebellion. We'll talk about this another time.
Yeah, yes. Instead, we need to get into episode 107.
Yes, which is the first cold open of season 4?
First cold open of season 4, yes. We find out that the narrator tells us that the full-scale conflict that would occur between Iserlohn and the Empire seemed to have almost happened by coincidence. But those in the know knew that perhaps this conflict was inevitable.
Yes.
Basically, we find out that the civilian ship, the New Century, escaped from Heinessen to defect to Iserlohn, seeking asylum, and that there's 900 men, women, and children who need help because their ship got damaged and they're being pursued by the Empire.
Is that an Evangelion reference? I guess it can't.
Wait, what?
New Century, because that would be like, it's like the Japanese title Evangelion, right?
Oh, right. I mean,
If it was in the novels, I don't think so, but
if it was in the novels, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's not like, look. It's not like they call this thing the fucking, I don't know, the this ship the Third Children or
right,
something. You
right.
know, like, I feel like New Century is like a
So
generic enough
yeah,
name.
it's also just weirdly specific enough. Anyway,
Yes. Anyways, Iserlohn gets news of this.
900 men and women who are
Yes.
seeking liberal democracy.
Yes, we find out that both an Imperial fleet and the Iserlohn fleet basically reach this ship at the same time. The
Yeah.
Iserlohn fleet gets there a little bit earlier. Dusty says we can't abandon them; it would be bad both morally and politically. So, Poplin complains about what a hassle this is,
Yeah.
but they still rescue them anyways. Fighting immediately starts, which is a
Right.
little. I was a little confused by this, honestly. Maybe someone can explain this to us, but I almost feel like fighting here kicked off a little too spontaneously.
It's like the patrol fleet that caught them is like, shoot, start firing.
Right. Like,
dude's a little gung ho about killing them.
Because we were shown time and time again, like Julian genuinely wants to negotiate with Reinhard, and Reinhard ostensibly sent Mueller, or was going to send Mueller to deal with Julian diplomatically. So, like, for a fight to kick off this quickly, it was a little surprising, I guess. And again, maybe it speaks to how trigger happy the admiral was on the Imperial side.
Yeah.
But yeah, so reinforcements start to show up. It starts off as a tiny skirmish, but then more and more ships begin
arriving. Yeah.
We find out that the admiral in control of the Imperial fleet at the beginning is one Admiral Droysen.
Mm-hmm.
He, again, fairly solid plan. He wants to draw out all of Iserlohn's forces because he knows that eventually his own reinforcements, from Reinhard and co, will show up.
Definitively outnumber Iserlohn.
Them. Julian knows they're trying this, but is kind of forced to play along.
Yeah.
And Julian has a great bit here where, he's talking with the rest of the crew about, like,
if they don't fight, Reinhard just won't listen to them.
Yeah, again, because of Reinhard's, warmonger nature, and how, like, in many ways, like, is this fight even necessary to have? And Julian kind of points out that, like, honestly, historians will judge Reinhard's bloodshed by the, like, efficiency of it. Basically, in scare quotes, whether all that bloodshed was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
That because if Reinhard did not achieve all the things he did, then yes, he would go down in history as a warmonger. But more likely, if Reinhard succeeds in creating his golden, enduring empire, historians will more likely just say, yeah, Reinhard killed a lot of people. Yeah, the Westerland incident was bad.
But it took only this many lives in the grand scheme of history to unify space.
Yes, it will have been worth it. Again, using the cold math of, like, we could go flashback all the way back to that Golden Bomb Dynasty documentary. Like, sure, it's only what was it, like 2% of the population or something
like
that was, like, murdered and genocided.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, was that worth it in the long run?
I also think back to Jessica Edwards' speech from so long ago about how being willing to die for ideals, like, really the best metric of this sort of thing. Like,
I think it kind of gets it. Like, here's the thing: Julian doesn't necessarily agree with this statement.
But
he's saying it's how historians will judge Reinhard, because this is the kind of society that
this is the situation they're in.
Yeah. And so Julian prepares for a fight because it's the only way they're going to earn Reinhard's respect. And just like Yang Wen Li, it's the only chance they have to drag him to the negotiation table.
Mm-hmm.
Reinhard gets the news, says he's going to be leaving with his whole fleet.
Yep, all the admirals, basically.
Every admiral is coming for this fight, which, man. And this is where Mueller points out, again, Mueller, maybe the guy with the clipboard in the Empire, points out that this battle is kind of small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. Like, you compare this even to Reuenthal's rebellion, and this
Right.
battle,
Not even
like,
close.
a minor skirmish at best, and that Reinhard shouldn't have to participate. And Reinhardt's too prideful for that. He's like, nah, I will never like shy away from a fight. So
Right. Also, like, they all know that Reinhardt's health is poor, and so
yes,
keep
yes. I
trying
mean,
to talk
obviously
about.
they're right, but they can't. They obviously can't go that route because that would just insult Reinhardt even more. So of
Yes.
course, they're trying to appease more to his like politicking side.
Right.
But yes, there is the subtext of also we're not sure you're even healthy enough to lead this fleet. And again, Mueller, man with the clipboard. Maybe maybe we all should. Well, again, I mean, because I root for the Iserlohn Republic, I'm glad this happened. But maybe
Sure.
the Empire listen to Mueller.
Yep. And Mittermeier also is like, you're a father now. You should go back to your empress and your child.
Man.
Go home and be a family man, Reinhard.
Yeah. And then Reinhard just fucking does
No,
I'm rubber you right back to him. Right.
You
like,
go home and be a family man.
Right. It's very good. And so they cow to Reinhardt's decisions. Reinhardt says that they're all leaving except for Oberstein and Wallen, whose fleet is still damaged from the last time Julian punked on him.
Yep.
I keep saying, please stop asking Oberstein of all people to maintain the peace.
Because he will just kill everyone.
Yes. But yes, so we find out that it's going to be Mittermeier, Eisenach, Bittenfield, Mueller, and Reinhardt.
Right.
And Mecklinger is along with Reinhardt.
Yes.
As like, I guess Mecklinger got downgraded to Reinhardt's adjutant or
he
something.
Is the staff officer or whatever.
He's a staff officer, yes. I mean, whatever. We get some good Mecklinger moments from this episode, so I can't relate. However, we find out before the battle's even begun that Reinhardt is starting to get a fever again.
Yep. And refuses to talk about it.
Yes. And then, as if to maybe prophetically, if there's any one thing Reinhardt has actually done that may doom the Lohengramm dynasty, I feel like it might, I feel like Reinhardt has largely, by and large, every action Reinhardt has done has largely benefited his empire.
Right.
This is the one thing Reinhardt does.
It's like, oh, you probably shouldn't have done that, dude.
That maybe might actually be the thing that eventually breaks the Lohengramm dynasty centuries from now. And that is Reinhardt demands the mic.
Yes, give me the mic.
Declaration that the emperor, no matter who it is, the emperor of the Lohengramm dynasty, whether it is me, my son, or any of my descendants, will always lead his fleet from the front. That no emperor of the Lohengramm dynasty will ever be a coward.
Because they'll all be just as great military commanders as Reinhard von Lohengramm.
And again, I am saving my Genghis Khan tangent for next podcast. But I will say, in many ways, this is Reinhard making a very key mistake here. He's making a very key mistake in his thinking that, a good leader is one who always fights, and that even in peacetime, what I will want in a descendant is a warmonger like me. Like, again, Reinhard...
The thing is, he values personally. That...
Right. Again, Reinhard does not realize that actually you do need a different type of leader in peacetime than wartime. And in many ways, again, I'm not saying... Look, I haven't finished the series yet. I doubt the narrator will actually say this dooms the Lohengramm dynasty. I'm just saying, based on my own reading of study of history, statements like these, this is what eventually kills empires.
Hey, I mean, every time we replace, these men remain the same.
But yes, so the battle begins. We find out that. Yeah, they start trading shots. We find out Julian is just fucking going for it. We get this great shot of, Julian busts up an Empire ship. It explodes into a cloud. He drives through the cloud, finds another ship, blows them up too.
Right.
Just...
Bitfield has learned after 100-something episodes to not just keep charging.
Right. We have a great bit where Dusty comments, "Oh, crap. I guess prudence has finally been added to the Bittenfield dictionary. I can't just use my usual half-assed strategy of pretending to run away and then not run away and shoot them.
Yes.
It only took 100 episodes for Bittenfield to learn Dusty's tactic.
Yes. Everyone on the Imperial side assumes Merkatz is in charge of the fleet.
Yeah, there's a really great...
Literally everyone.
There's a really great recurring bit where every time the Iserlohn fleet does something good, somebody on the Empire fleet comments,
Merkatz is good.
It must be Merkatz, that old fox. I knew he still had it in him. When, we, the viewer, knows, nah, dog, this is all Julian. This is all Julian.
Right.
Y'all are sleeping on Julian so hard, you don't even know. You don't even, y'all are so obsessed. Y'all are so obsessed with Merkatz. You are coping so hard that, oh no, it couldn't just be some snot-nosed kid beating us. No, it has to be Merkatz. Nuh-uh. It's Julian Minchie. Julian Minchie is the one who is punching you in the nose right now.
Oh,
and speaking
man.
of Julian Minchie,
yes.
So we find out the statistics of this battle is 51,000 versus 9,500.
Something like that. It's about 5-1 ship-wise and 10-1 manpower-wise.
Yes, because we also find out that Julian's fleet not only has less ships, but also less manpower.
The ships are literally undermanned.
Right, they are running skeleton crews. We get these great scenes of officers on the ship bridge running back and forth between different monitors.
Yeah.
Stations.
They note that a full 10% of the ships are just unmanned off in the back.
Yes. I want to. Yes, we want to talk about
set to remote control to fool people.
Yes, Julie has this fucking amazing. This is the most Yang. This is the most Yang galaxy brain has ever gotten. This is so ballsy. I'm not even sure Yang Wen-Li would try this.
He did in the Our Conquest of the Sea of Stars, right? He ran an unmanned regiment straight in or whatever, and was able to take the Brunhild hostage.
Right, but what I mean is that was more like a Hail Mary where those ships were expendable. Julian is using...
Right.
Julian is essentially using empty ships to hold an entire side of the flank in this battle, which is, anybody who's watched the show should already understand how important flanks are. There's a reason you put guys like Mittermeier and Bittenfield on your flanks. You need, your... that's the reason why you have guys like Edwin Fisher and Merkatz on your flanks. Guys like Dusty to hold a flank, because it is actually really important to hold the outer edge of your battle formation. And Julian is so short on admiralship manpower, he's just leaving one entire side of his fleet empty and unguarded.
Right. Just having them occasionally move around.
And this is amazing. The reason this is amazing is because this is amazingly the reason why I say even Yang Wen-Li might not try this is because I think Yang Wen-Li tends to be if we were to actually get into the real nitty-gritty between Yang and Julian, I think Yang's a little bit more cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Yang would not try something that could be so potentially disastrous.
Right.
Whereas Julian doesn't have the option to play it safe. It's do or die time, so he's trying everything.
Right, and then they simply note that if Kaiser Reinhard had not been sick and borderline unconscious, he probably would have noticed.
Yes, and that would have attacked and would have collapsed the entirety of Julian's fleet.
Right.
And the reason I kind of love this tactic is because, again, don't worry, this is not a full-on tangent, but in real world, battlefield tactics, there is this concept of threat range, basically,
okay.
of potential threat range.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is basically that you often have units set up on the fleet, in a fleet or in the field, not because you actually expect them to hit anything, but because their very presence will force the enemy to not go there. Deterrent, yes. The idea basically being, we don't think, or hell, we hope you don't come here, because oftentimes the units that are used as battlefield deterrents are not fully manned. They're not at full strength capacity.
Right.
In fact, they're often doing a similar thing to what Julian is doing here, where they're often pretty weakened, but they still have enough manpower and enough firepower to at least represent the concept of a threat to the enemy.
Right.
And the enemy, assuming they have like less than perfect intel, if they look there with their binoculars and they see enough guys and cannons and tanks over there, they will just operate under the assumption of, oh, we cannot go in that direction.
Inflate your ship balloons and
yes, essentially. And so it's a really great tactic that Julian is using. But Julian is using like maybe the most risky version of this tactic. Like the normal version of this tactic in real world battle would be like a half strength fleet or like a half strength battalion there. Julian is using a 0 strength battalion. Like this is some fucking Zhuge Liang shit of like it's like
right. I'm gonna stand alone in this city and play my lyre. And
I was gonna go with the other Zhuge Liang tactic of he once had like a bunch of. You know what? This is probably a reference to this. This battle is probably a specific reference to this.
It's very Yoshiki Tanaka.
Basically, like inflated. Like he basically lost a ton of manpower, but he had not lost his fleet, and so he had like basically like 2 guys to a ship, and on each ship they made a bunch of straw men and gave them armor. And like basically it was like a foggy day or something.
Sure.
And they basically just had them like do the Yang Wen-Li like move back and forth in front of the enemy.
No, it's starting.
Like, and the enemy saw like, oh crap, he still had. I thought we already like they thought, oh crap, I thought we already dealt like a horrible blow to his army. How does he still have a full strength navy?
We better back off, man.
It's
right.
Just, I think this thing is actually an explicit reference to that.
Narrator also notes that if Julian ever had the chance, he would use these ships as a decoy to go straight in to get Reinhard. But
yes.
No way Reinhard would fall for a trick of like that, and so he didn't think he would get the opportunity.
Exactly. But which in some ways maybe that in of itself is also, if only those fleets were manned, right? But
yeah, or if only Reinhard would be incapacitated in some way.
Yes. But we move into a great scene I want to talk about real quick.
So this is like the heart of why we like the FPA, I think.
Right. This scene is again the heart of, yes, as you say, this is a reminder of like why I think we, us specifically, have always kind of loved the FPA and the spirit of, if not the FPA, then the spirit of Yang Wen-Li's fleet. Is we have this scene of like some officers running around on the bridge, like complaining about like having to, basically run multiple stations at the same time.
We're running these terminals over to get us the readings from other stations.
Yeah, and like one of the guys says, like, I don't even know why. He's like, this reminds me of like a fucking wedding I went to or something.
So one guy's like, we don't have enough hands for this. This sucks. Like, we need more people. Dude's like, I remember when we didn't have enough people at some wedding. It just goes in this fucking weird ass tangent.
Right, about like the bride running away with like the stepson or so. It was some, whatever. The details don't matter. The point is they tell like just a completely like off the cuff like story that has nothing to do with the battle, and then they just have a good laugh about it. And the narrator points out that like, despite the like
hard time,
despite how tense this battle was, that perhaps it was this like spirit that was, the heart and soul of the Yang Wen-Li fleet.
That they can joke even at a time like this.
Yes. And that it was only Julian Minchie who was worried about the very real tangible stakes of this battle. So, another thing he inherited from Yang Wen-Li.
I also note that Julian misinterpreted the Imperial fleet's movements because he assumed that their movements were highly deliberate based on Reinhard's orders, when in fact, because Reinhard was not feeling well, their movements were in fact quite passive.
Yes. There's, I mean, again, this is kind of the great thing about, like, this is the great thing Legend of the Galactic Heroes does, right? Where it understands that battles are not things where people have, like, 100% knowledge of, Like, it is not like XCOM or Advance Wars where you have a top-down map where you can view the health of your opponent and their movement speed. Battles are this kind of messy, unknowable thing where you have, like, you have like an approximation of like based on your intel, you have an approximation of what they can do and how fast they can go, but you don't actually know. And even more specific things like, oh, their leader being sick and being like unable to like adequately coordinate the fleets, it's not a thing you would know. So for better or worse, like if you know Reinhardt's reputation and you assume he is fighting at 100%, that anything he does, you assume is going to be intentional.
That's why you pick an L and have your luck stat go up, so that
exactly.
But it also allows Julian, like, it's tough for him also because he can see, like, no matter what, there's the 5-to-1 numbers advantage. So, like,
right, there's no way he can win.
Yeah, and so Bittenfield charges right in.
Right, Binfield rushes in on Dusty, tries to envelop Dusty to prevent his retreat. Dusty, I don't know what is. So I continue to try and figure out what is so special about the Black Lancers and why anytime they go on the attack, a fleet instantly crumples.
Sure.
But Dusty's fleet starts to fall apart.
Yep. But Bittenfield wants the orders to like fully get in there and take him out.
Yes.
But
at the same time,
oh no, Kaiser Reinhard is so sick that he collapses. He falls unconscious.
He loses consciousness, and the doctors come rushing over, and we get a great scene where Mecklinger is like
fucking tired of this shit.
Man, Mecklinger is pissed. Like, if you thought Mecklinger was mad at Grillpalzer, like, was it Grillpalzer?
That was Grillpalzer.
Yeah, like Mecklinger
that was stern principal Mecklinger. This is
this is angry Mecklinger, a rare angry Mecklinger.
Mecklinger is revealed that he can use the Satsui no Hado at will.
Yes. He grabs the doctor by the scruff of his neck and says that, hey, Doc, you know Reinhardt's been sick for a real long time. Why the fuck have you not figured out what's wrong with him? You gotta find out what's wrong. Right, Doc?
You fucking better.
Lets him down, and he's like, oh, sorry, sometimes I get a little angry, you know? I'm a passionate guy.
Yeah.
And then we get the very rare, because of this, all communication channels have to get shut down to prevent the enemy from finding out.
Mittermeier declares that all orders have to go through him.
Right, so now Mittermeier has to coordinate everything. Interesting enough, we find out that even the other admirals don't necessarily know this, as we find out in the next scene.
It's mostly because they don't want the information to leak to Iserlohn fleet.
Right, but to not even tell the other admirals is like, I mean, that's what leads to what happens here.
Right.
But before that, we get the very rare, very rare, much more rare than the if only Kirky Eyes or if only Yang Wen Li were here. We get the very rare, if only Oscar von Roenthal were here.
What would Roenthal do? A question you very rarely should ask yourself.
Yes.
The number of situations where you must ask, oh shit, what would Roenthal do?
The only time you should ever ask what would Roenthal do is if you're alone in a room with a gun, or you're alone in a room with John Trunick.
What would Roenthal do?
You should ask what would Roenthal do. But yes, because of comms slowing down, things start getting muddled. Binfield gets caught in the open and loses its chance to attack. Dusty gets his fleet back together. Binfield contacts the Brunhilde, demands to know what's going on. Why didn't he receive his orders from Reinhardt? He demands to meet with Reinhardt. He threatens he'll even take a shuttle there in person. Mecklinger holding his ground pretty well with Binfield.
Mecklinger, if it was anyone but Binfield, I feel like they would have caught the hint that Mecklinger is talking because the Kaiser cannot. And just like, if it was any other admiral other than Bittenfield, they'd be like, okay, I gotcha. But Bittenfield's like, no, tell me, like, give me orders.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can tell Mecklinger is like trying to like say out of the side of his mouth,
we'll talk about it later with the Kaiser.
Yeah, like, look, you can totally meet with the Kaiser later. I'll take responsibility for this, but you can't see the Kaiser now. And Bittenfield's like shouting, like, why not? like, you fake poet.
You fake poet. Since when have you played Oberstein's tune?
It's like, whoa,
Of course,
low.
Mecklinger's artistic talents being insulted is the one thing he cannot stand for.
No.
Says the song that Jackal composes is plenty good enough for a wild boar like you.
Yes, and then basically just hangs up on him. It's really good. But what this really gets into is like these guys are all talented men, even Bittenfield, right? Like these are all talented individuals. But again, as I alluded to earlier in this podcast, is that we are shown one of the greatest weaknesses of an autocracy, and specifically an autocracy modeled after Reinhardt's belief in how it should be ruled, which is by essentially a warlord-based autocracy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when Reinhardt falls, the whole thing falls apart. Like, again, it's not Reinhardt falling ill is not enough for Julian to like get the definitive win. The odds are too great, but like this battle could have been won already had it not been for their over reliance on Reinhardt to direct things. I mean, Christ. I almost imagine if Yang had survived this long. Imagine what Yang could have done. The kind of things Yang could have exploited if Reinhardt got sick this often. Because remember, Reinhardt was still pretty healthy when he was fighting with Yang, but like, it was only around Yang's death where the sickness got worse. But man, all these fevers, man, Reinhardt, you lucky Yang's a fucking ghost now. Because if Yang were alive and you got sick this often, Yang's got no sense of battlefield scruples. If you were sick, he'd punch you in the bed right there. Like, he'd do it.
God.
You're too sick to come to the 7-Eleven? That's all right. I'll come to your house. I'll beat your ass there.
God damn it. Anyway, even Eisenach and Mueller are like caught up in difficult situations. Like they note that Eisenach, even though he positioned himself to be able to handle anything, he still like was slow to react. Mueller's staff is like, we didn't come here just to have a picnic. Like, we need to get in there. And Mueller's like, yeah, we should, but we haven't gotten the orders. And
again, it is their unfailing loyalty in Reinhardt that that in many ways it hamstrings them in this battle.
Right. And Poplin returns to base to refuel, but his radio on his Sartanian had picked up the transmission that perhaps Kaiser Reinhardt is feeling ill.
Yes. Gives the news to Julian. Julian has a meeting with all the admirals, and of course Shenkop is like, hell yeah, dog, let's go kill a sick man.
Let's go.
Because, that's Shenkop. Everyone else is a little bit more ambiguous about it at first. Murkatz kind of brings up an interesting point of, is it better to win or is it better to not lose? Essentially, if we maintain our current position, we will never win this fight. The best we can ever hope for is to not lose.
Right, like we'd eventually get beaten back into Iserlohn and our forces will slowly continue to dwindle as we continuously end up in this situation.
Right. We do not have the manpower. We do not have the firepower. We don't have the material base. And in many ways,
this is our only option.
This is our only option. It is not. This would never be our first choice. Hell, I don't think this would even be our third choice if we had more options available to us. But
all right, plan number I. Let's go.
Yeah. And so Julian agrees with the plan. However, he insists that he is going to come along as well because he still wants to negotiate with Reinhardt.
Puts his foot down. Like,
yes,
I'm coming along. Shenkov's not going in alone, not going in by himself. He's coming, or there's no operation.
Right. Because no matter how devoted to the idea Shenkop is of just fucking burying an axe in Reinhardt's skull, Julian insists that as long as there is still a chance to negotiate, he's going to take it. He nominates Dusty as his second in command, and the new commander of the Iserlohn Republic should he fall in battle. In a bizarre sense, I almost feel like this gives Dusty certain amount of plot armor that he did not have before. Because here's the thing. We know Julian's not going to die, so him designating successor doesn't matter.
Sure.
But
I do like this as, like, I think it shows Julian is more willing to put his foot down on orders than Young Lee was.
Yes. I think, I think it's interesting because I've seen, like, I've seen the sentiment expressed elsewhere that like, oh, Julian's like kind of boring. He's just a kind of like a worse copy of Yang Wen Li, and I really don't think that. I think that like if you really watch this show and you really pay attention to Julian's characterization, he really has become in many ways like the weirdly perfect mesh between like Yang Wen Li and then all of the other surrogate dads he learned from in the FPA.
And like I see where it's coming from. Of like, if you're too perfect, you're boring. But we've seen him get there. It's like over so long.
Right. I think like yes, if Julian just got arrived at this point out of nowhere, I think that would be annoying. But I think
it's achieved his final form in the last 10 episodes of the show.
Like, come on, like, yeah, it's like even if you do want to complain about like how perfect Julian is, like, dude, he only gets like 3 episodes to even show that off, compared to that to Reinhard. But yeah, like in terms of like, he has learned from Yang Wen Li's mindfulness and like tactics, but he's also learned from like Dusty and Poplin and Shenkop and hell, even Mirai and Fisher and everybody,
everyone,
like everybody, from Valen, everybody has imparted some lesson to Julian that, or Kirky Eyes, right? Like, like everybody's imparted a lesson to Julian that he has internalized over the course of these 100 episodes, and I don't know. I think his growth is actually maybe like the steadiest of them all in this show. Like you compare him to like season 1 Julian, it's like the kid has grown up a lot and he has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would Julian have stood up to Shenkop like this even a season ago? I'm not so sure. But yeah. So they prepare for a boarding.
With Mashengo and Poplin and Bloomhart and whoever.
Is that Bloomhart? Did we confirm that's Bloomhart?
I don't remember.
Or did Bloomhart die?
I think Bloomhart died. I think this is the other Rosenritter dude whose name I don't recall.
All right, sorry, second in command Rosenritter guy. We keep forgetting your name.
Yeah, and then Shenkop. They're all suiting up. Karen enters the room, gets wolf whistles from all the boys.
Yes, Christ.
Because, of course, the Rosenritter would.
Of course they would, yes.
Yep, and she basically tells Julian to be careful and
to come back alive. As much as I detest the individual, stick with Walter von Shenkop.
Yes.
Like, that dude is good in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Shenkop being Shenkop says, well, then I have one request for you two, and that's you two can do all the loving you want, but don't have any kids till your 20s. I don't want to be a grandfather in my 30s. Ha ha ha. It's almost like I am leaving behind these statements that guarantee I am not going to survive this show.
And so, all or nothing for Iserlohn. They're charging to get them to land combat on the Brunhild.
Yes, and to one way or another apprehend, kill, or contact Reinhard.
Yep. All right, lay it out. Who dies? Who dies next episode?
Shenkop for sure. On next episode specifically, I'm not sure, but I think in the next...
within the next 3 episodes.
In the next 3 episodes...
Mashengo
for sure. I hate to say it out loud, but yes, Mashengo definitely dead.
His level of like characterization, etc., is prime mauve shirt territory.
Oh yeah. He is well known enough to like be a face we recognize, but also expendable enough that like I would not be surprised if Louis Mashengo is literally the first character to die in the boarding of the Brunhild.
Now there are stakes.
Right.
Mashengo's dead.
Right. Again, Shenkop definitely dead. I'm curious what about
the thing with
Shenkop. Oh, okay.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, the thing I was just gonna say real quick is the thing I'm curious with Shenkop is obviously we know he's going to die, but I'm curious as what are the circumstances in which he dies? Like, does he literally die on a mountain of Empire corpses? Does he die like 2 feet away from Reinhard? Does he die saving Julian? Like what, where, how does Walter von Shenkop go out?
He goes out, does Mecklinger reveal he knew martial arts all along?
Oh shit! Turns out, yes.
Turns out you don't fuck with Mecklinger.
Yes. Mecklinger is also going to be on that ship, and the idea of Mecklinger fighting is very entertaining to me. But about Poplin. Poplin is the one I'm actually the most in the middle about. Like,
Yeah.
I think Julian will definitely survive. I think Julian has to survive, at least until he meets with Reinhard,
Right.
if nothing else. But Poplin is the interesting one.
I think Poplin might live.
I think Poplin might die, because there was that talk before about how, oh, Poplin, you're gonna turn 30 soon. You're gonna turn into an old man like the rest of us. And Poplin specifically said, well, technically I'm still 29. I'm still a young man.
But wouldn't the greatest tragedy of Poplin's life be that he did get to be 30?
He lives to his 30s? Yes, of course. I mean, yes, that's what we want, because we love Poplin. But
Poplin
I feel
never
like
did anything wrong. He doesn't deserve to be 30.
But I feel like it would be the most Poplin thing in the world for him to die here and then make some like snide one-liner about how
yeah.
I beat Dusty because I died a young man or something, you know?
Sure.
Like,
All right.
it would be a very Poplin thing to do, as tragic as that is.
Do we think Dusty survives?
I think Dusty survives. I think Dusty survives, Merkatz does not. Of the guys who are still in the fleet.
Merkatz 100% dead.
The reason why I think Dusty survives is because Merkatz is definitely going to die.
Right.
And if Merkatz definitely dies, I feel like it would be almost too much of a gut punch if Dusty... Like, if Julian lost everybody close to him, except for Karen and Frederica, I almost feel like that would be too grave of a price to pay. But, like, losing all of the boarding team and losing Merkatz feels like the appropriate price Julian would pay to bring peace to the galaxy. And speaking of, I want to, because this is our last podcast where we will get to speculate about Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah, I was going to say, which Imperial Admirals die, do you think? I think Mittermeier is safe because he has a baby now.
I honestly don't think any of them will. Like,
not a single one?
As weird as it is.
Not like Eisenach or Bittenfield? Honestly,
all the ones that I thought would have died already. Like if I thought if I thought any admiral was going to die at this point, I thought it would have been Valen, but Valen got his plot armor by staying behind.
Or maybe the Earth cult will get him because he's Alan Heinessen.
Maybe, but in terms of like the admirals, I thought would definitely not survive this show. They're all dead already.
Sure.
Like Kempf, Lutz, Steinmetz, Fahrenheit, Royenthal, like. Yeah. A lot of Empire admirals have died already. The reason it doesn't feel that much is because Reinhard has so many of them. He's got a baker's dozen.
Do you think Oberstein makes it to the end of the show?
What did I say in our season finale podcast? I said I'm going to have to go back and listen to that because I've already forgotten. But I feel like I was one of the people who said there is no way Oberstein survives this show. I begin to grow unsure of that now because I feel like if Oberstein was going to die, they would have made it more obvious by now. Like if there was a time for Oberstein to die, it would have been in the clash with Bittenfield. But since that didn't happen, I don't know. Like I don't see Oberstein. Like here's the thing. I cannot imagine the version of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which has the 30 years later epilogue with like middle-aged Reinhard, and then middle-aged Oberstein is still there, still doing his thing. I can't see that.
Sick.
Or you know what? Even more likely is that 30 years later, everybody has aged up, but somehow Oberstein looks the same because he just like made a deal with the fucking devil or something.
God.
I don't know. I really don't know. And
did we see Rubinsky again at all?
I thought we would. I thought when they said he got captured, I thought that's when we would have seen him. But since we didn't, my feelings about the Rubinsky plotline will hinge on if we do see him again or not. If we do see him one more time, I will be a little bit more forgiving to how like cleanly they tied up that plotline. But if we don't, then that would not surprise me either.
Yeah.
That, Rubinsky was just off-screened, and that was just their way of trying to get this plotline out of the way as fast as possible.
Who else do we got? Who else is on loose end?
I want to speculate about... All right.
Yeah, go for it.
Do we just want to speculate about how the show actually ends?
Go for it.
Do you have... Okay, I'll go first. I'll give you time to think. I want you to say something, too. I don't want to be the only person who looks like a fool here. You have to say something.
All right.
So I'll go first, though.
I will. Go for it.
I've been thinking about this for a while. Julian and the boarding crew will land on the Brunhilde. They will fight their way through it. Everyone but Julian will die. Every single person with Julian right now will die except for Julian. But because of their sacrifice, Julian will either somehow manage to break into Reinhardt's private quarters, or Julian will be surrounded by like Empire troops, but because of his display of force, Reinhardt will grant him a dialogue. Somehow, everyone will die, but in the process, Julian will be able to manage to speak one-on-one with Reinhardt. And in that conversation, which I think will happen behind closed doors because I think Julian, who the show keeps saying time and time again, Julian has a really good understanding of Reinhardt's mentality and thought process.
Right.
And I think that they're going to bring this full circle. And Julian will bring an argument to Reinhardt that would not work on anyone else. Any other admiral, any other leader who heard what Julian is about to say, or what I'm about to say that Julian will say, would be like, "That's crazy talk. To the brig with you." But to Reinhardt would hear this out. Julian would say to Reinhardt, "Why did you become strong? You became strong from fighting your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kill me and destroy the Iserlohn Republic, I think you could easily do with the resources you have. The Empire will have no more enemies. And the Empire will grow weak and decadent and fat. Your son will have no one to fight. He will have no one to focus his energies to. And your Empire will fall. Because just because you kill me, just because you kill the Iserlohn Republic, the spirit of democracy endures. Eventually, your empire will grow weak, and the cracks will appear, and someone will take that opportunity to rebel. However, leave us alive. You don't have to give us anything. We're not asking for territory, but leave us intact and leave us alive. Leave us to grow our strength and, have more babies, basically grow more manpower.
Uh-huh. Leave us alone like you'd like Ole Heinessen had a chance, had his time.
Had the chance.
Nguyen Kim Hwa had his time.
Exactly. And your empire will never have to want for a worthy enemy to fight. And that will keep your empire strong. It will keep your descendants on their toes. Like, They will not grow complacent because they will always have to fear us. And again, me just saying this out loud sounds like a crazy person argument, but Reinhardt is kind of a crazy person. And I could see Reinhardt, of all people, like, if he was around other people, if Hilda was there, of course this argument would not fly, because Hilda would be like, wait, hold up, no, Reinhardt, don't be stupid. But
Reinhardt on his own.
Also, if it is a feverish Reinhardt, a feverish, half-conscious Reinhardt,
oh yeah, whatever you say, Kirky Eyes. I'll do that, Kirky Eyes.
Right, like, alone, I could see that Reinhardt making that under-the-table deal of, fine, we'll retreat.
And the galaxy goes back to square one.
Yes, and the whole lesson to be taken from this
remain the same.
Exactly. What the show has been telling us this whole time is that no matter the time, no matter the age, the deeds of men will remain the same. We're back to square one. Literally, the Iserlohn Republic is back in the same position as the FPA at the very beginning. But also, does that not fit? Does it not fit?
You're right.
Like, again, the freedom fighters of the liberal democracy. Right now, weak and tiny, but filled with good individuals who will lay down a good foundation, right?
Sure.
Like, as long as men like Julian and Dusty and women like Frederica exist to guide the Iserlohn Republic, it will grow strong one day. And
war will continue, and everyone will die again.
I mean, yes, it will. And in many ways, like, would Yang Wenli be disappointed with that outcome? I think so. But on the other hand, I think he'd look at the shape of the setting and the situation it's in, and he'd understand that this was perhaps the best they could hope for. And I don't know. I think that's how it goes.
All right.
What about you,
on
Iro?
tape, man.
It's on tape. Now you got to be on tape too. You got to say something embarrassing.
I don't think the Earth cult's done. I think they like activate on Heinesen, and
Okay. So the Heinesen branch is still in play?
I think they are. I think on some level they're still gonna have to team up to fight the Earth cult, like even if it's just a few people.
But who's left after that?
Who's left?
I assume this would happen after the battle. So Shenkop's dead.
Right.
Merkatz is dead.
Yeah.
Like Mashengo and potentially Poplin is dead.
I think they might. I think Reinhard might die, and Julian is able to convince for Hilda to keep things going.
So you're gonna leave that out there on tape. You think Reinhard will die?
I think I think he'll make it to the last episode. I think he'll die in the last episode.
Oh yes, that I think is definitely happening. But...
Sure, I mean not in like a time skip.
I mean, I don't know. Definitely. Okay, I said maybe. Okay, so you think?
I think like it will be revealed his illness is like terminal, like, and soon that like it was part of the Earth cult's plan all along. Maybe the Grand Bishop did have the power to curse people. Okay, maybe not that, but I think there's cult. Like I think they will be the final boss, as it were.
So you believe the Earth cult is definitely still in play?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna be on tape to say that.
Good. I want that. I want both of us to be on tape here, saying something that could be immediately proven wrong in the next episode. Because, look, it would not be Legend of the GLORIO Heroes if we did not make like wildly off-kilter speculations that occasionally
have a grain of truth.
Off kilter, they roundabout and become true again.
Yep,
like the flowers of Iserlohn.
God.
Who would have known? I would have accidentally predicted Karen, the character.
All right.
But I think with that,
yeah.
we're going to call this a podcast.
Indeed.
So, as always, thank you all for listening. You can listen to this podcast and the rest of our content on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can listen to the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, and some other places, I'm sure. You can also listen to it on YouTube if that's more your style. If you like this podcast and want to listen to some other podcasts where we show up, you can check out our sister podcast, the GLORIO Chat, where we talk about currently airing anime. We took a break this week, or last week, but we plan to come back in time for the holidays. You can also listen to GLORIO's King of the Kaiju. And you can also watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive and VRV. I think with all that said, I think that's everything. So, once again, for what will probably be either the second or third to last time, we're still figuring out the formatting of our final episodes. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, Iro, thank you for accompanying me.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time amongst the Sea of Stars.